What is up, guys? You are tuned into the Casual Wrestling Monday Night Raw post show. I am NerdyD. If you're listening to this, you are the CWC, and this is the show where we join together to ask and answer the biggest questions coming out of Monday Night Raw this week. But before we do that, do me a little favor, tap the like button. It only takes 2 seconds, and it lets YouTube know you are listening, and it grows the casual wrestling community army as we continue to chip away at the IWC stronghold over the online wrestling conversations. So let's jump right into it this week. The biggest question that has to be on the mind of every casual wrestling fan right now is anybody excited to see Nia Jax again? Because I have to be honest. Every time I see Nia Jax return to WWE, I cringe and roll my eyes just a little bit more. There's just nothing exciting to me about Nia Jax. She's not that physically imposing. I mean, I guess sort of, but really not compared to Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Raquel Rodriguez. I get it. I get it, guys. This is my fault. I sat and I complained the last couple weeks that there were no credible threats to Rhea Ripley. But I don't think this was the answer to my complaints. I guess that the statement, be careful of what you wish for, this is that manifesting itself. I don't think that anyone was excited when Nia Jax returned at the Royal Rumble. And I've looked across the internet, and I don't see anybody who's excited or overwhelmed by this return as well. I love a great surprise ending on a Monday Night Raw, but this just isn't it. This is not what I'm looking for. So the question has to be asked, is Nia Jax really a credible threat to Rhea Ripley? Now, here's my problem. Nia Jax doesn't have this impressive resume to put forth. She's not that physically imposing. WWE tries to convince us every time that she shows up on screen. Michael Cole tries to convince us how scary Nia Jax is, but it doesn't read that way. She's sloppy in the ring. She hasn't wrestled since 2021. And I just don't get the vibes from Nia Jax that she's been out improving her skills while not being an active in-ring competitor. And I'm not trying to hate. I have no reason to hate on Nia Jax. She's probably a good person. I just think that Rhea Ripley needs real stories instead of bringing back a 40-year-old who never was really that over as a heel to begin with. And this is who you're putting up against your second biggest star in your company, not named Roman Reigns. Is that really a smart decision? I think that the risk of Rhea Ripley leaving this program with an injury just rose exponentially. This is the equivalent to me that if the WWE brought back Ryback as a surprise challenger for Roman Reigns, this is one of those moments where you question, like, is Rhea Ripley going to be safe in that ring as kind of messy as Nia Jax is when she wrestles? Like, it's cool. We haven't seen Nia Jax in a long time, but honestly, like, are we really that excited that she's back? Because Rhea Ripley needs credible threats to the title in the form of dangerous wrestlers, Charlotte Flair, Bianca Belair, even Shayna Baszler at this point. But WWE is so scared of pitting two actual superstars up against each other anymore because God forbid that one of them comes out of the feud looking inferior to the other. You might actually have to do some work to rebuild one of those characters that lose to Rhea Ripley. Instead, what they do is they bring back talent like Nia Jax, or they just put Natalya up against every babyface champion in the company and rinse and repeat because it's the safe thing to do. Once again, we're talking about safe with Triple H. And while you're being safe, Triple H, you protect certain wrestlers, but in doing so, you're actually shitting on younger talent. And I have to ask Triple H, is this really worth the shot at Raquel Rodriguez's credibility to overshadow her with the return of an overrated superstar who is knocking on 40's doorstep? I mean, I thought the chemistry in this match between Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez tonight was far better than what we got at Payback. Raquel Rodriguez found the pacing. This was the right mix of Rhea Ripley feeling like she was overpowered by an opponent, but not such a slow pace that it felt like Andre the Giant fighting the Big Show. A clean loss tonight for Raquel Rodriguez, I think would have hurt her character less than actually what happened tonight. I think it could have been a real back to the drawing board moment for Raquel Rodriguez to lose this match cleanly, to stick her hand out, try to shake Rhea Ripley's hand, and then go to the back and go, look, I'm just not there yet. But now, Raquel Rodriguez is back in booking purgatory. Do you put her on the shelf? Do you send her back to the tag team microwave, even though that division right now is an absolute joke? They start and stop. They start and stop. With Raquel Rodriguez, it's always start and stop. They do it so much that I'm afraid she's going to lose her identity pretty soon. I'd be all for, at this point, a repackage of a more serious version of Raquel Rodriguez. I'd even be okay with her doing some kind of short run in NXT to regain some form of dominance. Now, I think that Raquel could even benefit from some sort of repackage that gave her a legend mentor. I would pair her with somebody like, let's throw a name out, AJ Lee. And I'd have her go do a series of training montages where you document the progression that she's going through, and you take her from kind of sweet Texas girl to actual credible threat for a major WWE title. It would also generate a certain amount of buzz around CM Punk, which I know is kind of the trendy thing to do right now. And I think WWE at least enjoys the tease of taking an AEW talent and making them successful. I really think WWE could make a hell of a marketing package out of hosting one of the next 3 WrestleManias in Chicago and putting CM Punk into the Hall of Fame, but WWE is not ready for that conversation. But AJ Lee as a mentor to Raquel Rodriguez, it works. And if AJ Lee ever had that itch to get back into the ring and wrestle again, I think Raquel is good enough to protect AJ in a ring and not come out on the other side, more banged up than you started. But I also think that AJ Lee is the right type of superstar that in a match with Raquel Rodriguez could jumpstart Raquel Rodriguez's path to superstardom. So the last question that I have regarding Nia Jax is Nia Jax back for a long run? Or is this going to be a special one-off Fastlane appearance to just give Rhea Ripley some credibility moving forward? The women's division has too many moving pieces right now, and there's not enough time and not enough story to go around. I don't understand why this same story that they're telling with Nia Jax couldn't be done with somebody like Piper Niven. I think that this was 100% Triple H going for a shock value. He just wanted, Triple H is all about that next morning's headline. And he's willing to sacrifice the quality of the product to make sure that everybody wakes up and this is what they're talking about. I got a question. I don't think the chemistry between Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax is going to be even adequate. Rhea's selling point is her natural strength and ability to kind of be the aggressor in a match. And if you take that away from her with somebody like Nia Jax and you make Rhea Ripley play the underdog, I have to wonder how entertaining she's going to be. And I'm asked the CWC, who's playing the heel in this story? Because the crowd, yes, they absolutely love Rhea Ripley, but there's no doubt that the Judgment Day are the bad guys in every story right now. So you can't have Rhea kind of break away from that and be the babyface. And I just absolutely cannot see the crowd getting behind Nia Jax. And I don't love it when Triple H does this kind of stupid little thing that he does where he goes, does it really need a good guy? Does it really need a bad guy? And then the IWC come out and they go, yeah, stories don't need baby faces and heels. Yeah, they do. This is pro wrestling. That's how stories work. That's why people go see the Avengers. They want the good guys to win. They want the bad guys to lose. When you start telling stories where there's no defined roles, it gets messy. That's all I'm going to say about that. So moving on, I think one of the biggest questions coming out of Monday Night Raw this week is, what are our thoughts on Jey Uso's first match on Monday Night Raw being a tag team match? Because I'll be honest, I didn't absolutely love it. I think when you have a guy like Jey Uso, whose whole identity for the last 10 years has been tag team wrestling, you might just want to keep him clear of tag team wrestling, at least for the first couple of weeks. Now, I see what WWE is trying to do here by creating this undertone that when Jey isn't with Jimmy, things can get sloppy. It's not, they're kind of telling this story where both Usos might have, thought the grass was greener on the other side. But that kind of story would work better if you didn't use the sloppy friendly fire finish like 100 times in the past year with the bloodline. Because the story I think WWE is trying to tell is that, like, without Jimmy, Jey is going to struggle. Without Sammy, KO is going to struggle. They can't find that solid ground. And I guess that's well enough, but I will be overly happy when Jey Uso moves on to Drew McIntyre next week, unless WWE, in typical WWE fashion, finds a way to turn that match into a tag team match. Now, I don't know if anybody noticed, but they didn't give Jey Uso a ton of microphone time this week. And the question that I kind of wanted to pose to everybody was, do you guys think that was because he looked uncomfortable on a microphone last week? Because he was given considerably less time to talk in the opening moments of Monday Night Raw this week. He was immediately cut off by Kevin Owens, and I have to wonder if that was by design or if that's just what the story called for at this point. He told KO at one point, let's tag if you want to gain my respect and my trust. And what I think he meant to say was, let me be your tag team partner so I can gain your respect and your trust. And I know that that's a little nitpicky, but like, those are the kind of story beats that you have to hit and you have to get correct when you're given a microphone in that opening segment. Now, Jey Uso is a star when the bell rings. X's and O's, the wrestling part, he's got that completely figured out. But I think that Jey Uso is going to have to slow down and take a step back and get comfortable on a microphone if he wants to take that next step to superstardom. But I think it's just time and comfort for Jey Uso. And these are nitpicky critiques. I get it. But I have extremely high expectations for Jey Uso. He commands the crowd. There's no doubt. When he does his new little hand thing, the crowd reacts. He has all the presence in the world. I really think that within the next 3 years, Jey Uso will hold either the World Heavyweight or the WWE Undisputed Championship at some point. But this is what makes me laugh, is I make that statement alongside of the other people who try to tell me that Dominic Mysterio will be a world champion in the next 2 to 3 years. Like, they don't just hand the belt out to everybody. The fact that you guys want to put Dominic Mysterio next to Jey Uso and consider them equals is completely laughable. Jey Uso and Dominic Mysterio aren't even in the same atmosphere. Jey Uso will be a champion in the next 2 to 3 years. Dominic Mysterio has miles and miles and miles to cover to get to that level. But I'll be honest with you guys, I'm still on the fence with Jey Uso on Monday Night Raw. Are we as fans okay with this storyline of Jey Uso kind of seeking the respect of the locker room? Now, I will say, at least it's a cohesive story and it has an arc that will be able to continue from week to week. But to be honest, I would prefer if Jey was just a loner for a little while. After coming out of the bloodline, I feel like he should pretty much just be antitrust to everyone. Immediately being thrown into a tag team match, seeking other people's approval, that all seems so anti-Jey Uso. It's the little details like that that can make or break a character, and I think Jey Uso should adopt more of the Stone Cold Steve Austin don't trust anybody mentality and just start mopping the floor with any and every superstar he can get his hands on from Monday Night Raw. It needs to read from a casual fan's perspective that Jey Uso is the real deal, that there is nobody on the roster that can beat him when he steps into the ring. And I am so afraid. I am absolutely afraid that right now Jey Uso was brought over to Monday Night Raw to join the Cody Rhodes Avengers Super Friends 6-man tag team crew. The crew that consists of Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins. It feels like maybe they're just adding a 5th guy to the 3-man tag team rotation. And I'm praying that Jey Uso peels away out of this story as quickly as possible. And I am hoping that the Drew McIntyre story is the beginning of the solo push for Jey Uso. So let's hit the Raw rundown for this week. These are the questions that everyone wants the answers to that most podcasters won't talk about, starting with, why doesn't WWE recognize the appeal and talent of Xavier Woods? Xavier Woods is one of the best wrestlers in the WWE right now. He's absolutely phenomenal on the microphone. He sells better than anybody on the roster. He has impeccable wrestling skills. He is the anomaly of pro wrestling to me. I can't find one thing that Xavier Woods is not gifted at. He's an A in every category. At one time, I was doing NBA Jam ratings of wrestlers, and it was so hard when I got to Xavier Woods because it's A across the board, everything. I can't find a fault in his character. The only thing that you can say about Xavier Woods is that he might be slightly undersized. But even that is hard to sell me on right now when you have guys like Gable and other wrestlers who are thriving in that 5'10" to 6'1" range. Wrestlers are getting smaller. I don't love it, but that's a fact, and that's just the reality of professional wrestling. The better question I have for everybody is, at 37 years old, as good as he is, does WWE see him as a viable world champion? I hope they do. I absolutely hope they do. I hope they learn their fucking lesson from LA Knight and they see that age is literally just a number, and guys like Xavier Woods deserve the opportunity to see what they can do at that next level. Do you think WWE has given up on the women's tag team division? It feels like it to me. It feels like the division of, we don't know what to do with these people, so just stick them in meaningless tag teams, and then when something comes up, we'll pull them out and we'll use them in a story. But this is why I make the argument all the time that women's wrestling should have its own show with independent storylines, and it can take the place of like a main event, something that nobody's watching, and make it interesting and entertaining, and the fans will come. I promise you, the fans will come. There's just not enough to go around right now in the 5 hours of professional wrestling that WWE produces a week. WWE took all of this time to get us behind Chelsea Green and make her this enjoyable Karen character. And now they just are feeding her to whoever needs a quick squash match every week. They're absolutely destroying that character. I want to start hashtag let Chelsea cook. Let's see what she can do. Give her the opportunity. You've shut down she wanted to do a tag team partner search. They shut that down. You had the opportunity to at least create a fun storyline, making fun of your ridiculous rule, letting her pick champion partners. You did that, WWE. She didn't do that. You allowed her to go pick another partner. You could have ran with that and had her go through every female on the roster and give them a shot to be her partner and let her be super picky and find reasons why they just don't cut it as her partner. If you don't want to fuck with the record books, call them all interim champions. Say they have to defend the title 3 times to officially become a champion. But now, what we're left with is we now have a new tag team of Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, which once again creates this weird parody in the women's tag team division. You once again have these teams that have real credible threats, that are real credible wrestlers, and they're being put up against these comical tag teams. You are going to have to pick a lane with this division, Triple H, and the more that you do this shit, the more it makes me look back at Sasha Banks and understand that maybe she was correct. Maybe you are fucking up the women's tag team division. Maybe you could argue that outside of the top 5 women in the WWE, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Charlotte, Becky, insert maybe 1 or 2 more names. Outside of those names, is anybody really better off than Sasha Banks or Naomi? Trinity, whatever you want to call her? Or did they make the right decision? Trinity going and getting to actually build some skill inside of Impact Wrestling, and Sasha Banks taking her talents and being at least the top draw in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and eventually probably leading to a pretty solid run in AEW. I have to rethink my position on some of those. Does Gable really deserve a 3rd shot at the Intercontinental Championship? I just don't love the Christian Cage School of Wrestling theory begging for one more title shot, right? Gable is too credible to be telling Gunther that I am the guy who lost to you, but like you really felt my presence when I was in the ring with you. Or telling Gunther, you made my little girl cry. Like, what is Gunther supposed to do, Gable? Like, is he supposed to just let you win because your daughter's in the crowd? If I was booking Chad Gable from this point moving forward, I would have him get back in line to re-earn a title shot. And I do it pretty quickly. I'd have him challenge Ciampa next week because Ciampa emerged as a credible threat. So have him fight Ciampa, have him beat him pretty handily, right? Then feed Da Vinci to him. Have him run back through Imperium. Have him beat Ludwig again. And then in 3 weeks, I think he will have built back up the credibility to look like that he has reestablished what it takes to be in the ring with Gunther. But a whiny Chad Gable is going to be an annoying, boring Chad Gable. I promise. If they go this route with Gable and they make him beg for more title shots, it is absolutely going to ruin that character. I'm even for letting Ciampa have a title shot with Gunther at Fastlane, and then as we get closer to Fastlane, something, story injury happening to Ciampa where Gable has to fill in. Gable beats Gunther, wins the Intercontinental Championship, and then Ciampa comes back and he's upset about it, and you begin a program with Gable and Ciampa. That works. But what they're doing, this begging for another title shot, I hope that was a one night only, and this isn't the storyline moving forward. Do you guys still view Shinsuke Nakamura as a credible threat to Seth Rollins? I gotta tell you, I am so over this World Heavyweight Championship program. Somebody come wake me up when this is over. I am tired of Seth Rollins' repetitive ass promos. I am tired of Shinsuke Nakamura's goofy ass, I'll challenge you when I'm ready shtick. I don't want to see Ricochet versus Shinsuke Nakamura again. Like, nothing in this program feels like the main event of Raw. This feels like a 3rd tier story. It fits perfectly in like the 2nd hour of Monday Night Raw. And the problem is while Roman Reigns is MIA, the World Heavyweight Championship should feel like the strong, prestigious, the championship that actually means something in WWE. But as far as I'm concerned right now, from my perception, Gunther's Intercontinental Heavyweight title is the real prize on Monday Night Raw. That is the belt that I pay attention to. But someone explain to me how this story wouldn't be better if it weren't just in reverse position. Shinsuke Nakamura as the champion, and Seth Rollins in a desperation mode to gain the title back. Shinsuke Nakamura telling Rollins, I will give you the title shot when I feel like it. Right now, this program is so silly. Like, it absolutely is just like an insult to intelligence. I'm so checked out of this. This has literally become almost, there's times where I want to just fast forward it and read what happened later. Seth Rollins in the ring cutting a promo trying to explain away his successful past gimmicks while dressed up as the fucking Cookie Monster with dollar store glasses on. I have never been so excited for the Money in the Bank cash-in in my life. I am counting the days until Damian Priest cashes in the briefcase and puts us out of our misery here. So let's transition into some news that happened over the weekend. Fightful Select is reporting that LA Knight never actually signed a new contract with WWE and that he and WWE are actually far apart in the terms of a new deal. I call bullshit. I call bullshit on this. The dirt sheets are so out of hand. They're literally the dirt sheets, and I know they've always been out of hand, but it feels like this year they've just jumped off the deep end. They report literally anything that will get clicked. How the fuck does the narrative change so fast? Last week you're telling me he signed a contract. Now we're rewinding and we're saying not only did he not sign the contract, but now we're far apart in negotiations, which is such a subjective thing to say. Do we really think? You're going to tell me we really believe a guy who absolutely loves the business and has grown up loving the business like LA Knight would derail his opportunity at a push because he just needs a quick bag, right? Sign the damn deal, go out and prove who you are, and then sit back down at the table and you can renegotiate if that's actually what's going on. But I think more likely than not, this is just clickbait. I think there might be some back and forth. There may be some small details that they're just, cleaning up in the contract. But I don't think there's a worry from LA Knight or WWE that re-signing is some kind of possibility that's not going to happen and that LA Knight's going to leave WWE for AEW. This is no different than all of the stories that came out in the last couple of weeks about Edge return to AEW is imminent. Then he shows up on the SmackDown intro, which is newly put together. There's no different than Drew McIntyre's contract has expired. He's still working on his old contract. Okay, but he's here, he's showing up, he's working, so you guys were wrong on that as well. And it's no different than all the reporting on the CM Punk backstage antics. I will believe all of this shit when it comes from the horse's mouth. So Matt Riddle had an incident at JFK Airport, a disorderly passenger report. Riddle retracts his initial statements. Lots of weird shit going on with Riddle right now, but I'm gonna say this about the situation because I don't know the details, but I'm gonna tell you guys, I told you guys 2 years ago when I gave Riddle the douchebag award in the WWE that this is who he was. I can tell. I have this kind of perception of people. And do you know how bad the basement-dwelling IWC fought me on this? Look, I am a married man. I am a father. I understand the most basic of moral values. You don't turn your back on your family, and you don't end up in rehab, then come out and start dating porn stars. Riddle's just kind of a weird-ass dude. He needs help. And here's the issue with pro wrestling right now. This is what I fear. I guarantee you the conversation within WWE corporate right now is that we can't fire him because he'll show up in AEW. And that's such a scary sentiment. And so I'm guessing that WWE right now is weighing this option of, do we just shelve him? Do we try to get him some help again to see if he can change who he is at his core? But based on the Jeff Hardy stuff, it's obvious that Tony Khan will sign Riddle in a heartbeat no matter what his past issues are. So look, I hope that Riddle gets the help that he needs and he figures out how to be happy. But I can tell you the actions that Riddle has performed in his past, those aren't the actions of a happy person. The last story tonight is Bryan Danielson signals that his days as a full-time wrestler are ending next year. Man, what a missed opportunity by AEW. Never having Bryan Danielson as your AEW World Champion is absolutely ludicrous to me. Every year, Tony Khan wins this mysterious Booker of the Year award, and yet all I see is missed opportunity. I think the pan is cooled off now. I don't know that if you put the title on him now that it would have the same effect as when he first made the jump over to your company. But Bryan Danielson's kind of a weird dude. I think he likes it this way. I don't think he really ever wanted to be the champion. I think he thought, I'll go to AEW, I'll get to wrestle all the people that I've kind of always wanted to wrestle, and I'll fade away into obscurity, and I'll show back up and wrestle when the matches, when I'll pick my spots when things look like something I'd want to be involved in. But it's hard to believe, man. He was the biggest thing in all of wrestling at one point during the Yes movement, and AEW just absolutely did not capitalize on that. And I think this is going to create a little bit of a weird situation where when Bryan Danielson finally does retire, what does that do for him and the WWE as far as the Hall of Fame goes. Because at some point, we are going to get into a situation where WWE faces inducting people who were vital to WWE into the Hall of Fame who parted ways at some point and went to AEW. It will be interesting to see how they finally handle that. When the time comes, do they acknowledge what he did in AEW, or will they strictly just be like, hey, come back, we're going to pretend like your career ended when you left WWE? So last big question for you guys before we hand out awards and give Raw a rating. They didn't make any mention of it this week on Monday Night Raw, but I've seen internet speculation about trade compensation for Jey Uso on Monday Night Raw. So I want to know, what do you guys think SmackDown will get in return for Jey Uso going to Monday Night Raw? So I made mention to something last week in the Casual Wrestling Discord, but after watching tonight's Monday Night Raw, I'm even more confident in what I said, and that is my money is on The Miz being the person that's being traded to SmackDown. It just makes absolutely too much sense to me. There's almost absolutely nothing left for him to do on Monday Night Raw. He's currently involved in a storyline with a guy that lives on SmackDown, and the Monday Night roster is honestly just so bloated with main event talent that there's no place for The Miz to fit in right now. He could easily transition over to Friday Night SmackDown and finish up whatever story he has going on with LA Knight. Then he can transition that into story with somebody like Austin Theory or Grayson Waller, or even like I suggested on the SmackDown post show, he could create a new faction where he mentors Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. But ultimately, you get him on the same show as John Cena if you decide to fall back and run that back one more time. It just makes sense to me. Now, I hear all the speculation on the internet about Cody Rhodes, but I just don't feel like the way it keeps getting brought up on Monday Night Raw, that they want to make the perception that Cody Rhodes traded himself to Friday Night SmackDown. I still don't think that WWE is quite ready to move Cody over until they get kind of 100% commitment from Roman Reigns that he's ready to start it back up and commit to being present all the way through WrestleMania. I think it's more likely that Cody Rhodes shows up on SmackDown like around Royal Rumble. So once some of this bloodline story has kind of cleared itself up, I think that pre-WrestleMania, we probably get a match between Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns. It just honestly right now to me feels like it's too quick to get Cody back involved in finishing up, his quote-unquote story. That's why I'm leaning on The Miz being the one to jump over to Friday Night SmackDown as compensation. It's a show that could use somebody with his veteran abilities. It could give him some space to actually be a main event superstar, that is the quality of wrestling that he brings. So he needs that ability to be it. And especially outside of Roman Reigns in the bloodline, SmackDown actually doesn't have a ton of high quality heels to put over the baby faces right now. Like if I asked you this question, if you're ranking the current heels on Friday Night SmackDown, what does that booking sheet look like? What does that rundown sheet look like? 1, Roman Reigns / Bloodline. 2, Grayson Waller. 3, Austin Theory. 4, Karrion Kross. I don't think that The Miz immediately comes in and minus Roman Reigns becomes your biggest heel on Friday Night SmackDown. That's why I don't think you send Cody as a babyface over to SmackDown with absolutely nobody to work with. The SmackDown roster right now, to be honest with you, after looking at it, it's literally on life support. Like we joked a couple weeks ago about them pulling all the talent off of SmackDown because of the Fox negotiations. But when I look at that roster, like there's really outside of the bloodline, there's not a lot for WWE to tap into on the show that people actually care about. And with no signs of Roman Reigns coming back in the near future and Bianca Belair, we don't know how long she's going to be out. The show literally survives on the backs of Charlotte Flair, Damage Control, LWO, and the crumbs of what's left of the bloodline. Literally, if LA Knight didn't have this meteoric rise on SmackDown, I think this would be a sinking ship right now. So The Miz would be an injection of fresh air to a show that needs someone who can command presence. And I'm sure Cody Rhodes could come over and cut a weekly promo and the ratings would go up a little bit. But I think for just pure wrestling purposes, I think that The Miz is the guy who rarely gets to wrestle on Raw and is a guy who would come over to SmackDown and immediately elevate the show. All right, let's hand out some Monday Night Raw awards. Match of the night tonight, pretty simple. I think it's the 6-man tag team match between Alpha Academy and Imperium. I think that was the match of the night. I think that Raquel Rodriguez and Rhea Ripley is a close second, but as much as I don't love Nia Jax, that surprise might have actually taken a little bit away from me. Superstar of the night was a little tougher this week. Nobody absolutely just stood out to me. I think that I'm going to give it to Chad Gable this week because I've still yet to be disappointed in a Chad Gable match, especially the last couple weeks. So I'm open to persuasion. If somebody wants to jump in the comments and try and change my mind, you guys tell me who you think deserved a Superstar of the night, but I'm going to lock it in at Chad Gable. And so that leaves me with tonight's Raw rating. Let's run down the matches here. KO and Jey Uso versus the Judgment Day. I gave that a 3.5. Miz versus Akira Tozawa. I gave it a 3. Imperium versus Alpha Academy. I gave that a 4.5. Xavier Woods versus Drew McIntyre. I gave a 3.8. Chelsea versus Shayna. I gave a 2. Seth Rollins promo. I gave a 2. And Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez, I gave a 4. I actually gave it a plus 0.5 just because I do like surprises at the end of a Monday Night Raw. I do think they make it more exciting. So given those scores, add them all together, average them up. This final score of Monday Night Raw this week was a 3.3, giving us just another okay Monday Night Raw. But there you have it, casual wrestling community. That is the Monday Night Raw post show for the week. Make sure to check out the Casual Wrestling Podcast every Wednesday. The Champ and the Chick every Monday afternoon. The SmackDown post show on Friday nights. Do me a favor. Make sure to hit the like button on the video. Let me know what you thought of Monday Night Raw. And as always, guys, stay casual. I'm tapping out.
Step in the ring, if you ready, let's go. Ay, casual wrestling community show. You already know, talking WWE. Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious NerdyD. Ay, dope show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit 'em with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like the show. But